Welcome to the meeting of the Gloucester Conservation Commission for Wednesday, April 3rd, 2024. The time is just after 5:30. As the recent amendments to the open meeting law allow, the Conservation Commission will continue to hold remote meetings. Adequate alternative access to the meetings is provided through the Zoom link. As usual, continue to check the city calendar and the updated agendas for upcoming meeting call-in and login information. We'll start with a roll call of commissioners. Member Charpentier.
Here.
Member Cook.
Here.
Member Gradwell. Member Sargent.
Here.
Member Viteri.
Here.
Member Gullah.
Here.
And Member Jackson. Right.
Okay, next up will be, or first up will be administrative briefing. Do you have anything in there to discuss, Chuck?
I do not. We do have a lot of continuations, but they are all right at the top. So I'll save time from reading through them now and let you get to them sooner.
All right, so moving on to the public comment period. This is the period of the meeting where the public is welcome to speak towards conservation items that are not, I repeat, not on tonight's agenda. If you wish to speak now, you may do so by hitting your raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
Let's see, we have 15 attendees and there are no hands up at this time.
Okay, seeing none, hearing none, I'll close the public comment period. Next up would be minutes for review and approval, the March 17th, 2024. I think we have enough members to vote.
Okay. Charpentier moves to approve the minutes of March 17th, 2024.
And Commissioner Cook seconds?
We'll call Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Viteri.
Yes.
And Member Gullah.
Yes. Okay, then we're going to go right into continued business. So everybody bear with me because I'm going to read all these even though they're continued. Notice of intent 0282968 22 Raven Lane, Lori Watson and Sue Dolan, the Hawthorne Point Condo Association for repairs to an existing retaining wall in buffer zone to coastal resource area and area subject to coastal storm flowage. Lori Watson and Susan Dolan previously continued this to May 15th, 2024. Next up is notice of intent 0282969 5 Somerset Road, Laura Taormina to raise and rebuild a single-family home in Riverfront in buffer zone to coastal resource area. Bill Manuel of Wetlands and Land Management, Inc. previously continued this project to April 17th, 2024. Next up would be notice of intent 0282983 12 Woodward Avenue, Deanna Rudzkowski for construction of a single-family home, driveway, and stone patio in riverfront area and land subject to coastal storm flowage and buffer zone to coastal resources. They are requesting to continue to April 17th, 2024.
Charpentier moves to continue NOI 0282983 at 12 Woodward Avenue to the commission meeting of April 17th, 2024.
Commissioner Cook seconds?
We'll call Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Viteri.
Yes.
And Member Gullah.
Yes. Okay, moving down the list here, we are now up to notice of intent 0282976 171 and 281R Magnolia Avenue, HowMag LLC, construction of a 26-unit residential subdivision in riverfront area in buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. Evan Gavendaran of DeRosa Environmental requests a continue to April 17th, 2024. So we're going to request to continue that, Linda?
281 Magnolia Avenue? Oh, did they ask for continuation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I must have an older version of this. Charpentier moves to continue NOI 0282976 at 171 and 281R Magnolia Avenue to the meeting of
April 17th.
17th.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Lettieri,
Yes.
and Member Bella.
Yes. Okay, moving down the list, we have notice of intent 028-2950, 160, 158R, 154A, Essex Avenue, Upper Banjo LLC, construction of a road, utilities, drainage, and a dam reconstruction, installation of a dock and float in buffer zone to BVW, land under water body and inland bank. Joel Favazza of Seaside Legal Solutions, PC, representing, has requested a continuation to April 17th, 2024.
Charpentier moves to continue NOI 028-2950 at 160, 158R, 154A Essex Avenue to the commission meeting of April 17th, 2024.
Okay, quick question. I usually recuse on this one. Can I second and vote for the continuation, Chuck?
I believe so. You're not deliberating anything.
Just wanted to check. Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Lettieri,
Yes.
and Member Bella.
Yes. Next up, notice of intent 028-2981, 139 Wingersheet Road, Ernest Herman, removal of an permitted boardwalk on dune and revegetating portions of the pre-existing path in coastal dune, land subject to coastal storm flowage, coastal beach, and land containing shellfish. Mary Rimmer Environmental LLC representing, they are requesting a continuation to May 1st, 2024.
Charpentier moves to continue NOI 028-2980.
Can't hear you. Oh. We lost you there for a minute.
Okay, let me try again.
There you go.
Charpentier moves to continue NOI 028-2981, 139 Winkersheek Road to the commission meeting of May 1,
Commissioner Cook.
2024.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Lettieri,
Yes.
and Member Bella.
Yes. Next up, notice of intent 028-2982, 134 Willow Street, CAM Holdings LLC to raise and rebuild a single family home with walkways, masonry, stone wall, and reconstruction of an existing wood pier in riverfront to coastal bank, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and buffer zone to coastal resources. John Judd, Gateway Consultants, Inc., representing.
And we had a continuation this afternoon on that one to April 17th.
Okay.
Charpentier moves to continue NOI 028-2982 at 134 Wheeler Street to the commission meeting of April 17th.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Lettieri,
Yes.
and Member Bella.
Yes.
Okay, great job with the continued business, Rob.
Quick through it, huh? All right, now we're into new business. We've got extension 0282651, 21 Bale Lane. Daniel Bonacotti of construction and installation of the beach and access pathway or maintenance thereof on Bale Lane Association Beach and implementation of the Bale Lane Beach Addition Association rules and regulations. Daniel Bonacotti, I would assume, is representing.
Yes, sir.
Name and address for the record, sir.
Could you say that again, sir? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry, name and address for the record.
Daniel Bonaconti, 15 Bale Lane, Gloucester.
Okay, what's the plan here? You
So
need
this
to-
is it's just a renewal of our permit to put down a 3-foot wide Moby mat over a dune at the end of Bale Lane down to Coffin's Beach. The last renewal, I think it was supposed to be for 3 years, but it was only 2, so I'm up again now. And we had the original beach management plan filed, I guess, 3 years prior to that. This really enables the residents of Bay Lane to access the beach in a safe manner, but also protects the dunes by focusing all the traffic in one little 3-foot area. And I'm sure you're all familiar, those Moby mats are permeable, so both sand and vegetation goes through them, and they go up and down at the beginning and end of the season, so it's in no way any sort of permanent structure. The original beach management plan gave us permission to flatten sort of left to right, not up and down, not remove sand, just make it sort of a horizontal walkway up over the dune and back. And it really works out great. And although I am aging, I'm not the oldest on my street, but it really enables some of our older residents to get to the beach safely, because the dune at Coffins is a little bit of a hill where we are. And so it really provides for good footing for people to go down and back without eroding the sandway.
Okay, thank you, sir. So what is this, your first extension or your second extension?
So I guess this would be the second extension. So we had the original beach management plan. I got that extended 2 years ago. And so I guess this would be the second extension request.
Okay. Chuck, is that correct? Are we still within the 3-year belt for him?
Yes.
All right, why don't we do I'll open it up for public comment first. Anybody in the public who wishes to speak towards the project, the extension at 21 Bay Lane may do so now by hitting your raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
There are 19 attendees and there are no hands up at this time.
Seeing none, hearing none, to close the public comment period. Why don't we move on to roll call, commissioner comment?
Member Charpentier,
No comments?
Member Cook,
No comments.
Member Sergeant.
Yeah, I noticed in the order of conditions, the original one, the National Heritage said that all work in putting down Moby mats and everything would be done prior to April 1st. And I'm wondering if that's already been done, or if that's going to be done afterwards. I think you need a written letter from National Heritage.
I will have to get a written letter then, because it is not down as we stand here today.
Member Terry.
I just have, is there like an end point for the order of conditions? Or is this going to just be sort of a rolling extension? Or is there an alternative process where we can just, impose, continuing conditions and, attach the beach management plan or whatever documentation we need to a recorded order of conditions, so that you don't have to keep coming back for extensions, that this could just be sort of the way that this is managed under a continuing order of conditions?
Chuck, you want to respond to that?
I can see that there would be a vehicle to allow that. I guess for that to happen, though, we'd probably want Natural Heritage to sign off on that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I know other places, if Natural Heritage requires something every 5 years. So if there was some, feedback from Natural Heritage that they're okay with that, I think that'd be something for the commission to consider.
Yeah, and there's obviously, I'm Peter, I'm probably, you know this already. Obviously, they have 3 years to I think a 3-year cycle, correct? That they are allowed?
Yeah, it can be extended for 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, if we, I guess it's sort of a way to maintain sort of ownership on this, but does it ever sort of get a certificate of completion for an order of condition? Just, just every 3 years, it just remains an open order of conditions that keeps going on and on. And I guess, it's a way to get them back in and make sure everything's going, according to plan, but it just seems like this is sort of a continuing obligation. So I don't know. It's more of an administrative question, I guess.
Yeah, it is, Peter. I mean, within the NOI, there's a box that you can check off that allows the order of conditions to remain in perpetuity. But it has to be done at the NOI level. When it's first filed, you can't change the order of conditions to go into in perpetuity. It has to be done at the NOI thing. I mean, I deal with the same thing on our beach management plan.
Sure.
Which I'm a little surprised, because I mean, National Heritage usually tells you, you can't bring any equipment down on the beach and stuff like that, but laying the map, we don't lay our map down until after Memorial Day. And that's in our order of conditions.
Mhm.
So you're saying it's their order is a little earlier, is that what you're saying, Bill?
Yeah, their order of conditions in the order of conditions, Natural Heritage said that all work, would be done before April 1st or after August 31st of any year, unless otherwise approved in writing by the division.
So it seems like, Mr. Benicotti, that you're probably gonna have to get that letter and then cycle back to us for a quick review.
Okay, forgive my ignorance in this regard, but how long does anybody know how long it takes to get that letter? Because I don't want the thing to expire and then have to go back to the drawing board type of thing if the extension expires and then I have to go back for a full notice of intent. Does that make sense?
I think we could approve the extension, but just have a condition that you submit the letter before you install the MobiMat and
Okay.
have the agent check that to make sure.
Yeah, it shouldn't take too long. We'll figure out who the reviewer would be, and I'm sure we can contact them by email or something.
Okay, sir? You got that?
Yeah, Dan, when you talk to National Heritage, what you might suggest is say just you're going to have somebody, check the beach area to make sure that there's no piping plovers nesting
Right,
where the mat's going to be laid.
because you're encroaching a little bit on a time period that the plovers are gonna start showing up.
Okay.
Okay, then with that, we're just gonna move to continue, I think, at this point, is that it?
No, we're going to approve it with the condition he gets a letter.
All right, Linda, you wanna make a motion?
Did we have a public hearing on this?
I
Public
probably
comment?
thought in the chaos, so why don't we do it now to double check?
We already did. There's nobody that raised their hand.
Okay, so Charpentier moves to close the public hearing for extension 0282651 at 21 Vale Lane.
Do a second.
Bill,
Do we have to, I second it.
Roll call. Member Charpentier.
Yes,
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes,
Member Thierry.
Yes.
And Member Gullo.
yes, with the aforementioned conditions of the notice and,
That was just to close the public hearing.
oh geez. It's such a short night, I'm ripping through it, I just can't believe.
yeah, you you're ahead of yourself, Rob.
I'll go with yes.
Okay. Charpentier moves to approve extension 0282651 at 21 Vale Lane with the aforementioned conditions of a letter from National Heritage.
There we
For how many years is this for?
3.
Three.
Three.
For 3 years.
Commissioner Cook, seconds.
Roll call. Member Charpentier.
Yes,
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
yes.
Member Thierry.
Yes.
And Member Gullo.
Yes. You're all set, sir.
All right, thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time.
No worries. Have a good night.
You too.
Next up, notice of intent 0282984, 932 Washington Street, Kim Dworsky and Brewski, University of Massachusetts, Amherst, installation of a timber boat dock, seawall repairs, installation of a living seawall, the redevelopment of a teaching and research space, inland subject to coastal storm flowage, land under ocean, and coastal bank. April Dorowski of Fuss and O'Neill, representing. Name and address for the records, both of you.
Alex Maxwell, and I'm at 40 Babcock Street, Brookline, Massachusetts.
Okay, April.
And April Dorofsky with Fuss and O'Neill, 1550 Main Street, Springfield, Mass.
Excellent.
And we also have one other team member, Kevin McGarry, who's also present on the call.
You're promoting now.
Thanks, Chuck.
Kevin, you muted yourself. Oh, there you go. There you are. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Name and address for the record.
My name is Kevin McGarry. I'm from Fuss and O'Neill, 108 Myrtle Street, Quincy, Massachusetts.
Okay, why don't you give us a little short concept of what you're trying to do here?
Sure, thanks. We have a slide deck prepared, so we'll pull that on the screen now. Can I just get a thumbs up from folks to let me know you can see it okay? Great, perfect. All right, so thanks for having us here tonight to present the UMass Amherst Gloucester Marine Station Priority Site Improvements Project. I introduced myself before, but again, for the record, I'm Alex Maxwell. I'm a senior environmental planner with Fuss and O'Neill. I've been partnered with the University of Massachusetts Amherst on this project. Tonight, I'm joined by several of my colleagues who kindly introduced themselves at the top of the presentation here. And I also know from text here that there are a couple other members from the UMass Amherst team as well on the call. I think Katie Call is also in attendance. So just to cover a brief summary of what we want to present very quickly here tonight, we'll start with an overview of the project site and existing conditions. We'll then give a summary of the proposed project, the potential environmental impacts associated with the project, and then we'll end with a discussion of the regulatory compliance and open it up, of course, for questions and comments. So as probably many of you are aware, the Gloucester Marine Station is located on the north side of Gloucester, shown here on these two images. It's addresses 932 Washington Street. That's the parcel highlighted on the screen there in blue. It's an approximately 7-acre peninsula of existing fill, roughly bounded by Ipswich Bay to the north, and then Hodgkins Cove to the south, with the Washington Street connection on the east side of the property. Highlighting here some of the wetland resources that have been identified at or near the project site. These are those that are subject to the jurisdiction under the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act and its implemented regulations, as well as the City of Gloucester, Chapter 12, Article 2 Wetlands Ordinance and its implementing regulations. And these include all three of the items bulleted here: land under ocean, coastal bank, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. So at present, for anyone that's been out to the site and walked the site, the edge of the existing seawall to the west of the station building, which I'll point out on the screen here, it's in the upper center image here. This area has currently fallen into disrepair, along with the existing outdoor teaching and research space, which is largely comprised of broken down concrete slabs, which you can see in the images surrounding that image of the seawall here in the center. It's important to note that Gloucester Marine Station also does not have a dock or a crane at present to safely load and unload research equipment and people on and off research vessels in Hodgkins Cove. So recognizing the need to address these deferred maintenance issues and challenges, significant site improvements are needed to really maintain the long-term research and educational goals of the Gloucester Marine Station. So this proposed project includes the following actions. Firstly, the installation of a boat dock and land-based crane to provide access to Hodgkins Cove and a safe means of accessing the cove and loading and offloading equipment from research vessels. The proposed project also includes the needed repairs to the existing seawall to improve structural integrity. And this will also present an opportunity to then install living seawall habitat panels to the seawall, which will increase the potential for habitat formation along an otherwise bare granite seawall and create additional research opportunities for UMass Amherst faculty, students, and staff. And then lastly, the final component of the proposed project includes redeveloping the outdoor teaching and research space to the west of the existing station building to provide a dedicated and more formalized instructional and research space for UMass Amherst faculty, staff, and students. This just gives a little bit of an outline of where where these proposed project elements will be located on the site. It's over an aerial, which is actually on the bottom here, pointing towards the north, with the cove here to the south. But this graphic shows the general location of where the timber boat dock will be installed, along with where those repairs to the existing seawall will be located, including the location of the crane, which will be proximate to the dock. And then in this area here highlighted in green, the number 3, that'll be where that redevelopment of the outdoor teaching and research space will occur. Zooming out just a little bit to where the actual proposed improvements are located. I mentioned this before, but the footprint of the existing building is located here, highlighted by my cursor. And then all of the proposed site improvements will be located in this limits of work here. Overall, the proposed project will result in a little over 19,000 square feet. It's 19,575 square feet limit of disturbance. This will be including the previously developed footprint of the peninsula and the adjacent area in Hodgkins Cove. The proposed project, as mentioned before, is really intended to result in long-term benefits to UMass Amherst research and educational goals. We have the full copy of the permitting plan set loaded up here, so we can certainly zoom in and touch on specific design elements. But all of the work will be concentrated in this area west of the station building. This is just a zoomed in view here in the upper right-hand corner of the site. This will include a small outdoor classroom with a granite seating wall and recycled granite curbs used as some of the ground cover here. In the southwestern part of the site, this will include an elevated seating wall with the ability to accommodate larger classroom sizes with views both inwards towards the working area near the dock and crane, and then views outwards towards the rest of the site and the remainder of the peninsula. The darker gray area along the bottom is where those seawall repairs will be done. And there's an outline here for the dock and crane system as well. I know this is just looking at it in plan view, and the callouts are a little fuzzy to read. We can certainly, as mentioned before, pull those up on the PDF, but to give a little bit more of a visual of what these site improvements will really look like. This is one of our very early conceptual renderings, but I think it does capture many of the proposed site improvements that we submitted as part of the NOI here. So you can see here the existing station building rendered off to the right, and then the proposed dock, crane. It's important to note the crane may not look exactly as shown here. Similarly, some of the landscape elements as proposed in the planting plan will look slightly different than what you're seeing here, but overall, most of the design elements here will look very similar to what you're seeing in the conceptual rendering. A couple of the other items that I didn't mention before in looking at this in plan view, there will be an enclosed storage area incorporated into the proposed designs, as well as some of temporary shade structures. These would be shade structures that cover parts of the elevated seating wall and outdoor classroom space. These can be removed seasonally and are intended to be done so in some of the winter months. And then as well with the dock, this dock is also being designed to be removed seasonally as well, using the land-based crane to take it out when it's not in use in the winter months here. So that's just a little snapshot of what we're hoping it'll look like. I'll now turn it over to my colleague April, who will talk through a little bit more on the permitting, on the potential impacts, some of the mitigation measures that we're anticipating, and then the regulatory compliance piece. So April, I'll let you take it from here, and I can flip through the slides if you just say next.
Sure. Thank you, Alex. So thinking about the wetland resource areas that are being impacted, we'll start out with the land under ocean. There are 7 square feet of permanent impacts due to the installation of the timber piles. standard practice. Those piles will be installed within a turbidity curtain as well. For coastal bank, it's about 1 linear foot of permanent impacts because a stormwater outfall pipe runs through where the coastal bank is. So in order to install that, it's about 1 linear foot. And the land subject to coastal storm flowage, I know that doesn't have performance standards, but I wanted to make sure the commission knew that, we understand this can be a very harsh coastal environment, and this was taken into account during the design. So, when thinking about that, the work was limited to the previously disturbed footprint on the peninsula. Of course, the dock and the water is separate. But also the limit of work kind of was designed in accordance with the required standards. And the dock is removable, and the temporary shade structures, portions of that are removable, and items included in the design are included, will be secured in place, so that any potential storms, that they can kind of withstand that.
Okay.
And so thinking about how this project was designed to avoid, minimize or mitigate any impacts, I mentioned the dock location was kept closer to the seawall instead of kind of jutting out, and it was pulled as far away from the eelgrass, the surveyed eelgrass beds as possible. Those were surveyed, I believe, maybe last year. There was 2 rounds of surveys that were conducted, so it's pretty high resolution data there. Like I mentioned, the work within the previously developed footprint. In terms of minimizing impacts, sediment and erosion controls were included. It's a pretty standard practice, of course, but also a stormwater pollution prevention plan will be prepared. The turbidity and oil curtain will be installed around the dock installation area, and some spill protection equipment will be kept on site. And in terms of mitigating impacts on land, you could tell from those photos there was a lot of concrete slab there. So as part of the redevelopment, we try to incorporate areas where hopefully the water can infiltrate and native vegetation will thrive. So that includes about the 5,700 square feet of landscaped areas. In addition, there are habitat panels that are being proposed along the seawall, and that's along with UMass researchers will kind of use these to study the different ecosystem benefits that occur from these. But these habitat panels there have been studies that show they increase abundance and diversity and survivability of macroalgae and invertebrates. And that's really, instead of just a flat seawall, increasing the diversity in form and function of that area. And of course, the stormwater is currently the current existing stormwater management on the site. There really isn't much on site right now, and I know Kevin can speak more to the stormwater design, but it is certainly a big improvement over existing conditions. So treating that water quality and improving that before it makes its way to Hodgkins Cove was another important part of mitigating these impacts. And thinking about compliance, again, starting with the land under the ocean, the dock is removable and not anticipated to increase any erosion of nearby resources. And the turbidity curtain is being installed during the dock installation. The coastal bank is really masked behind the seawall itself, and also underneath the concrete slab, but it will essentially maintain its area where it is now. And those seawall repairs along the face will, of course, increase the stability of the coastal bank and of the redevelopment of that area. And for land subject to coastal storm flowage, the dock and crane are designed to withstand the high winds and storm surge. And that is it.
Okay, thank you very much. Is it someone else in your group wants to speak?
I think that's all for now. We're happy to take comments and questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so first up, I'm gonna open up to public comments. If anybody comments on it, or if any of the commissioners comment as we go through roll call comments for commissioners, just take notes and then we'll go through all of them in one cycle instead of picking and choosing. Okay, so right now I'm gonna open up for public, anybody in the public who wishes to speak for or against the project at 932 Washington Street, may do so now by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
Let's see, we have 18 attendees and there are 2 hands up. The first is Todd Myers.
Todd, can you hear me?
Excuse me. Yes, I can. Hi, good evening.
Record, sir.
I'm sorry, I beg your pardon?
Name and address for the record.
Yes, certainly. My name's Todd Myers, and my address is 4 Cardinal Lane, and also Cart Track Drive, both in Ames, both in Bayview, abutting the UMass Marina. So I'd start by saying that the UMass folks are they're a good neighbor. They have the beauty in the organization is that they are a low impact on an area which is a very environmentally sensitive location there on the jetty or neck or wharf there of the Gloucester Marine Station. As a neighbor, however, though, I do have a bunch of concerns and questions, which I'm not looking for answers right now, but I'd like to highlight them for further contemplation and consideration. The area proposed for development, you know, the concern is unintended long-term development consequences and pollution as a result of the activity that's going on in an area that is classified as a coastal floodplain. For practical purposes, I believe it was last June 15th, I think the whole area along the coast for all of the neighbors of the Gloucester Marine Station now have a development restriction on all of the land around there, including land where I reside. And I think that's a lovely thing. But then it begs the question, why then is there further development going on the Marine Station if there's a development restriction going on? And maybe that doesn't apply, that law doesn't apply there. I don't know, but I guess that's the first question that I would start with. Next up, in this write-up, there was really no explanation of the long-term goals of the Gloucester Marine Station. I mean, is anybody going to say that they're not looking ultimately to turn this into a commercial piece of property? That's obviously a concern for all of the neighbors, and it has big concerns for environmental pollution in the area. Following that, another question that I have is, you mentioned that the crane has got a 15-foot boom. No mention of the height of the crane. So that would be something that would be good to know. Then relative to the dock itself, will that have public access to it? Wasn't mentioned one way or another, and I'm sure that the neighbors would have concerns either one way or another. There may be ones that want access and others that don't. So that would be good to know, because we've got a small cove there with Hodgkins Cove. Next up, and I don't have a number on your write-up for this, but it mentions that you're looking to put in 8 timber piles. I guess, so the question there is, it wasn't explained why, other than, I think, maybe you're looking to have a hard wooden dock there. But the question would be necessarily, why is one needed when you mention that you're going to have a floating dock that's going to be removed during the winter season? So why would piles be needed? And I'd mentioned the fact that driving piles into the ocean floor, there may be environmental concerns that one should be considering. And I will reference a short story here regarding my cousin's house across Hodgkins Cove, which he put in about 6 years ago. And when they were digging the foundation, there was ledge. And so they started to jackhammer the ledge. There's a pond 200 yards from that ledge, and the noise and the sonic vibration drove the large snapping turtle out of the ground, which proceeded to walk up the hill to get away from the noise. And I would argue that driving piles into the ocean floor is going to be no less detrimental to the sea life around there. So has anybody taken a good understanding of what the implications of that are to the marine life there? I'll add to that, I understand there are old piles there currently, but that doesn't mean that we necessarily want to repeat past history. Also in your study, I think it mentioned that the eelgrass is some 31 feet away. And I would argue that sediment travels underwater as efficiently or more efficiently than dust does through the air. And so I think that there's another area that needs to be considered. For all the boats in that area, they have been told that they're supposed to put a coil anchor system in. And if so doing, again, I guess the question is, why are we driving piles into the ocean bed when the concern was for the eelgrass? So then, let's see, I'm going to go through some of the numbers here, and then in your document on 2.2 for a project site, it describes it. It is dominated by an impervious surface, and maybe you're talking about the cement, but that whole jetty out in the water there consists of riprap from the quarries, and it is 100% pervious surface. Additionally, number C.1 for issues, Mass Endangered Species Act Endangered Species Act, it was answered as no. And in point and fact, there is a bald eagle and sometimes two bald eagles that roost on the top of the blue building there, as well as across Hodgkins Cove on Davis Neck. Then on C.4, within the coastal area, answered no for ocean floor. I think that you ought to readdress the eelgrass issue there. Then on item C.6, wetlands restriction, you have an answer as no, coastal wetlands restriction. And I'd again refer to the law that went into effect June 15th last year, 2023. Is that area land governed by that coastal wetlands restriction? Then moving on to 3.31, stormwater. It's my understanding, if I've read this correctly, that your proposal is to drain the stormwater into Hodgkins Cove, the fresh water, off of the UMass or the Gloucester Marine Station. The whole structure that you're looking to build is increasing the area of impermeable surface, acting as a concentrator of water, fresh water, which is then being proposed to be piped into Hodgkins Cove. And for folks that are in the studying ocean water habitats, I think it's pretty clear to understand that a freshwater source, concentrated source, being dumped into an ocean area where it does not naturally occur is a source of pollution for that marine life, just as salt water or a salt source is for a freshwater habitat. So I'd wonder, number one, whether there's been a study done on that. And then also, more importantly, why aren't you taking the question out of this and running a pipe out to the street, to the stormwater drain, where the sewer pipe already flows to? Because as good as your pollution control may be, why should we be polluting that area with fresh water where it doesn't exist already?
Okay, Mr. Myers, how much longer are you going? I usually only allow 3 to 5 minutes. You've gone well past that. Are you almost wrapped up?
Well, I am almost wrapped up. I appreciate that. Okay. Then on 2.5, rare species, again, says the rare species do not occur in this site. Again, bald eagles do occur on that site. And then lastly, 2.6, the eelgrass habitat. If you look at that, your data that you're using on that study, it dates to 2022. And one, I'm concerned that your data is old at this point. And two, with eelgrass 31 feet away, you're, again, driving piles in there is I believe, is going to have an impact on that eelgrass. So those are a few concerns that I have that I would welcome seeing some answers to. I am, as a number of people are around there, long-term residents, and with the Oceanographic Center having a love for the place like we do, I want to make sure that there are no unintended consequences here for a place that we all love and wish to see continue as a very beautiful and clean piece of oceanfront. And at that point, I will turn this back over to you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we have another hand up, Mr. Ames.
Yes. We have Mark Ames.
Am I unmuted?
You are. Name and address for the record?
My name is Mark Ames. I'm the nearest neighbor across Hodgkins Cove. I have two comments. One, there's a local marine worker named Tiger Marston who's been down underneath that wharf. And at some point years ago, he mentioned that there's spruce, I think, that's the underpinning of that rock wall that you're working on fixing. And it may be worth you engineers being able to speak to him. His phone number is 978-491-1150. It just occurred to me that he's a diver, as am I, and not everybody has probably looked at the bottom of the wall. So you might find him useful to talk to. That's just a piece of neighborly advice. The other question I have is that my boat is moored directly outside of there. And if there's a new dock, I don't know that there's room for a large boat to swing in. I don't know how large the dock is going to be. There's no specifications on that I saw. And I don't know how big boats are planned to access it, but if that's the case, my mooring may be in harm's way, or actually my boat on the mooring may be in harm's way. So I just ask if there's any thought been given to that.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. And
Oh, you got cut off there. Sorry about that. Okay, so obviously, gentlemen and ladies, we're going to have to continue this. There's a lot of information I'm sure you just got dumped on you. If you want to just give a quick overview of what you just took in, we'd be willing to hear it. Just keep it brief because we obviously have other projects to review tonight.
Sure. So I can dive in. I noted here the development restrictions. I'm not aware of the June 15th development restrictions, so we can look into that to maybe better answer why GMS can develop, and maybe there are restrictions elsewhere. Long-term goals of GMS and the question around turning it into a commercial piece of property. I would just ask Chuck if it's possible to unmute Katie, our UMass partner on this project as well. She could say her name and address and just touch on the question around, concerns over this being used as a commercial piece of property. Katie, do you want to say your name and address and speak to that comment about the commercial piece?
Sure. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Great. Katie Call, 101 Concord Street, Gloucester, Mass. UMass is in this for the long haul. We have absolutely zero intentions of turning this into a commercial piece of property.
Great. Thanks, Katie. There was a question about the height of the crane that is included in our spec, but I will have to get back to you to know the exact height range that we would spec for that 2-ton crane with the 15-foot boom arm. In terms of public access to the dock would be restricted for use of UMass Amherst research students and staff. That would not be publicly accessible. In terms of the environmental concerns with driving the piles, we did speak to that in the NOI. April, I don't know if there's anything you want to add about how those areas will kind of be restored. And then Kevin, if you want to just briefly mention the use of the turbidity curtains to address the comment on the sediment traveling into the mapped eelgrass bed.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially it. I think if Kevin wants to add details on top of that.
Sure. So for those who don't know what a turbidity, sorry, let me back up. I also forgot to mention for the record, I am a professional engineer licensed in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. For those who don't know what a turbidity curtain is, it's essentially the silt fence version of what goes in the water for in-water work. So if you imagine a pool noodle on the top floating along the surface and then hanging below the pool noodle in the water is a fabric, and that fabric allows water sort of to flow through it, but it is of a certain porosity that it prevents the sediment, any sediment that's kicked up during construction from floating through it. So it eventually creates this sediment wall, so we can encapsulate our entire work area in this little sediment wall so that the work can happen, and that turbidity curtain remains in place until all of the in-water work has been completed. It's also equipped with an oil boom on the top, that pool noodle also, so if the sediment barrier protects you from anything that travels under the water, and the pool noodle on the top protects you from anything that's floating on the water.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're gonna have to continue this, but I want to do commissioner roll call comments first. So Chuck, you want to do commissioner roll call comments?
Sure. Member Charpentier?
I just want to say that I'm in favor of the project. I think this is going to be an overall betterment to certainly what's there now. I guess my only question is, there were so many comments by Mr. Myers. Is the UMass team going to put the answers to those questions in writing so that we could all see them?
Yeah, we've captured the comments and can develop responses for everybody to look at.
Thank you.
Like commissioner comment period, you don't need to speak, just us talking. So.
Member Cook? You're muted.
Bill. You're muted.
Okay. I have a bunch of questions. Most of it revolves around, yes, the existing area was, or used to be, impervious. Although it's all so broken up right now that it's basically become a pervious surface. So I'm concerned. I have issues about going back and making the entire area pervious again. So that would be the first thing. Second is we're putting another storage unit over there that's, we need to know what the square footage of the additional storage buildings that you're gonna put on. As was pointed out earlier, we need to know what the dock size is going to be. Also, there isn't any walkway to that. So I mean, I could make the assumption that you're going to put a ladder there. But, you know, need to understand how you're going to access that dock. As was pointed out, not a fan of putting in pilings there. So definitely would like you to go back and reconsider that. Those are the three highlights that, and the drainage, the outflow. I was having a hard time understanding it. It looks like you want to have an outfall for the overflow water. But then it also looks like it's going into some type of collection basins. And it was a lot around that. So we need some more discussions around how the drainage is how that drainage system is gonna work. It's pretty extensive, so we need to understand how that's gonna work. That's what I have.
Member Sargent?
In the interest of full disclosure, I remember when this was the Consolidated Lobster Company, and we sold lobsters there in the late 50s, early 60s. So, and I'm very familiar with the property because I had to be there often as the shellfish constable. But that being said, DEP had some technical comments that information was requested by Mass DEP during the ENF review period, which does not appear to be addressed. The plan should include complete delineation of the coastal bank within 100 feet of the proposed activities and include cross sections and quantification of both temporary and permanent impacts. Specifically, the northeast side of the property is missing information on coastal bank. Applicant should conduct a pre and post-construction flow analysis that includes a plan showing existing conditions, current topography, surface conditions, and existing walls and buildings, as well as show position, construction conditions, topography, and surface conditions, and evaluate flow pathways or velocity of flow, as well as the pathways that coastal floodwaters would be expected to travel onto and off the site based on these current conditions to ensure the proposal design does not cause channelization of flows and or increased velocities that could impact existing infrastructure at the site. I want to know what your response is to DEP's concern and why those concerns were not answered during the ENF process. And lastly, all construction material for the pilings and the floating dock must not contain a marine biocide. Thank you.
Member Viteri.
I have a couple questions about seawall repairs. First is any, or for any repairs that are going to be made below the water line, is there going to be, I guess, how are those going to be performed? Is there going to need to be a ability to create dry conditions, and if so, is there going to be cofferdams or anything that's going to be required in order to create dry conditions below the water line to make the repairs to those portions of the wall, and will those have impacts on the ocean floor? The NOI listed 2,500 or so square feet of temporary impacts to land under ocean, and I guess my question is what do those consist of? Is that the containment boom, or is that the sediment boom, or is that something different? And does that relate to sort of repair work for the seawall? And my final question is, I didn't see anything about containment netting or other containment measures that would prevent any debris from the seawall from entering into the water. It's kind of different than sediment being kicked up on the sea floor and being contained. This is sort of repairs on the wall if any debris is entering the ocean. So those are my questions.
Member Bella.
I think everybody captured what I have already, so I have no significant comments above and beyond what was already said. That being said, I think at this point, you've got all the information, you've heard from the public, you've heard from us. We're going to continue you. So we do two-week cycles here. I'm assuming you might want to go out a month, but that's your choice for your next meeting time.
April, are you okay with us going out a month? I think that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a lot. It looks like you got a lot ahead of you.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
So that'd be the May 1st meeting.
May 1st. Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll move to continue this, Linda, when you're ready.
Okay, Charpentier moves to continue NOI 0282984 at 932 Washington Street to the commission meeting of May 1st.
We have a second?
Bill,
Bill,
second. You
You're
got a
muted.
second?
somebody else?
I'll second
Yeah,
it.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
All right. Roll call. Member Charpentier.
Yes,
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Viteri.
Yes.
And Member Gola.
Yes. Okay, we'll see you May 1st.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Coughing up a storm here, so I'm trying to stay muted when I can.
What's going on? You're okay? No, it's muted. All right, moving on. We are now through to, let me just note something. Okay, so we're
Down
at
to
the. Oh,
Yep. RDA 1801.
RDA 1801 Lincoln Street and Walker Street. Michael Hale of the city of Gloucester to remove and replacement of water main and replacement of a stone culvert in riverfront area in an area of critical environmental concern, buffer zone to salt marsh, bordering vegetated wetland. William Ross of New England Civil Engineering, representing. Name and address for the record, sir.
Good evening. I'm William Ross with New England Civil Engineering from 265 Essex Street in Salem. And we were before you a few months ago with a very similar project on Rust Island. The city is embarking on replacing a number of water mains in a number of areas where they're currently above ground water mains. We call them summer lines. So before I get to this, the project on Rust Island Road is going very well. They've finished work on Thompson Street, Causeway is nearly done, Biskie Head Road, Crafts, and Ye Old County. So the main has been installed. They're finishing up the water services, and we expect to stop for the season in a few weeks on that project.
Okay, great.
So looking ahead to the next project, it is very similar, and as shown on the screens, it involves installation of about 3,500 feet of water main on Lincoln Street and Walker Street.
Okay.
Walker Street is currently served by another one of those shallow above ground water mains. So the project involves removing the old water mains and installing new water mains within the paved surface on the roadway. It's similar to the other project, and if it was not for it being in proximity to resource areas and buffer zones, we would consider this an exempt activity. But we wanted to come before you because of what's Chuck showing you, the various resources and buffer zones. Nearly the entire project lies within one or the other of the riverfront area, wetland buffer zone, or ACEC buffer zone.
Got it. Okay. First, I'll open up for public comment. Anybody in the public who wishes to speak for or against the RDA at Lincoln Street and Walker Street may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 16 attendees and there are no hands up at this time.
Okay, seeing none, hearing none, close the public comment period. We'll move on to Commissioner roll call comments.
Member Charpentier,
No comments.
Member Cook. You're muted.
Still can't hear you, Bill.
No comments.
Member Sargent.
Yes, it was a good presentation. I note that you want to replace the culvert that's collapsed a bit on Lincoln Street, and I'm familiar with that culvert. And I think replacing the culvert requires an NOI and really shouldn't be part of this RFD, as you noted in your written narrative that might be the case. You know, that's my only comment.
Okay.
Member Materi.
I agree with Member Sargent that culvert would require a separate NOI. For the remaining work, I don't see an issue with it. My only comment would be to add conditions that the trenches be closed after each day, not necessarily paved, but just covered, and proper erosion and sedimentation controls be in place. Similar conditions to the previous water line work we approved.
Member Villa.
No additional comments at this time. So with that then, so what are we gonna do? We're gonna split one we're gonna do the RDA for now, and then you'll have to come up with a notice of intent.
Correct, if I may we tried to cover both bases, and I neglected to say that the erosion controls will be put in place similar to the other project where we'd have straw wattles strung up along the edges of the road within the buffer zones and silt sacks in the catch basins. What we are proposing, the work we're proposing subject to the RDA would be the method of installing the water main under the existing culvert. And we would be coming back before you to replace the culvert separately. And the work as described would be excavating a relatively deep pit for a water main. And normally we're only 5 feet deep. We could dig a pit 7 or 8 feet deep on either side, and they would force a iron pipe through a method called jacking, and they would push the iron pipe through undisturbed soil under the culvert. 20 feet long stick. So we would be, let's say, 8 feet on either side of the culvert, the pits would start. We would push one solid piece of pipe through. We would evacuate the soil from the pipe afterwards, and then pull a new 8-inch water line through it.
Oh, good. All right. Chuck, anything to add with this?
Nope.
All right, do we want to move to approve the RDA?
So, don't we have to close the public comment period?
Yes.
Charpentier moves to close the public hearing on RDA 1801 Lincoln Street and Walker Street.
Bill, you.
Commissioner
Yeah.
Cook seconds.
Bill
Roll call,
second.
Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Lettieri,
Yes.
Member Gullo.
Yes. Now you gotta move to approve.
this is a negative determination,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Yes.
Charpentier moves for a negative determination for RDA 1801 Lincoln Street and Walker Street with the aforementioned conditions of sediment and erosion control and excluding the replacement of the stone culvert.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Lettieri,
Yes.
and Member Gullo.
Yes. Okay, you're all set, sir.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Okay, moving down the list, we have notice of intent, 2986, 424 Washington Street, Greg Shoup, construction of a garage and relocation of a shed and mitigation plantings in riverfront areas subject to coastal storm flowage and buffer zone to coastal bank. John Judd at Gateway Consultants Inc. representing. Good.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, John Judd, engineer with Gateway Consultants, representing Greg and Deborah Shoup for this project at 424 Washington Street. This is a property that is just beyond the Richdale as you head north on Washington Street. And it's on obviously the left-hand side of Washington Street, and there's an existing dwelling on the property as shown on the plan. Chuck, if you'd like, I can bring mine up, or if you want to bring it up, it's up to you.
That doesn't matter to me. I can bring it up.
Yeah, if you don't mind, it's easier. Thank you. So you see the site plan. This is the lot on the left. The lot on the right was a recent application that was submitted last year for a separate owner, and that has been completed. And the proposed project is the replacement of an existing shed that Chuck has the cursor around with a proposed garage as shown. We have included riverfront area mitigation calculations. There is this proposed garage is going to be over a existing packed gravel surface. So what we're looking to do is basically replace that shed with the garage as shown and mitigate over 200% of the additional impervious area associated with that. We're really not going closer to the river in terms of degraded area, but in that we're staying within the confines of the existing gravel driveway. But nonetheless, we are providing the requisite mitigation with native plants adjacent to the coastal bank and seawall as shown on the plan. We are proposing an erosion control mulch stock to be temporarily placed during construction, and that's really the extent of it. And we can answer any questions. I believe Mr. Shoup is on the line as well, if there's any questions for him. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, first up, I'll open up for public comment. Does anybody in the public if anybody in the public wishes to speak for or against the project at 424 Washington Street, you may do so now by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 18 attendees and there are no hands up at this time.
Seeing and hearing none, I'll close the public comment period. Next up would be commissioner roll call comments.
Member Charpentier,
no comments.
Member Cook,
You're muted, Bill.
Yes, I have a couple questions. One, it says the existing shed was going to be relocated. You do show a new shed, but looks like it appears to be significantly smaller. So I didn't see anything that looked like the size of the existing shed being moved. So I want to make sure that there's not going to be two sheds. And then the second part of that is there a need to put the new shed closer to the resource area? Can't you move it like to the side of the garage or something like that if it's going to be much smaller?
Okay.
So it's not close to the resource area. That's it.
Member Sergeant?
There should be a 2-year monitoring for the mortality of mitigation plantings.
Member Siri?
Yeah, I'm not totally sure that the mitigation calculations are correct under the redevelopment standards, 10.585 standards. I feel like there's not an improvement over existing conditions because there's an increase in impervious area because of the relocation of the shed and because of the increase in footprint of the garage over the shed. The work is closer to the waterfront than existing conditions. The work is located toward the waterfront, and you're already exceeding the 10% of the degraded area of the property. So I think there's going to have to be separate calculations for mitigation or restoration, 1-to-1 restoration or 2-to-1 mitigation for each of those criteria that's not met. And I'd like to see the mitigation be along the seawall instead of clustered in the corner as well.
Member Bella?
Nothing else to add. I think my fellow commissioners captured it all. So why don't we move on to your response, Mr. Judd?
Sure, thank you. Relative to Peter's comments, it was my interpretation that since we're within the packed gravel area, no closer to the river, but I certainly understand because we've visited this before in other projects that because of so I believe your interpretation, Peter, is the increase in impervious area of this proposed garage that's closer to the river. Am I that would require the 200% in your view?
Well, so there's the footprint of the garage is larger than the existing shed
Right.
area, and then you're taking that shed and moving it, into another area. So if you're putting it over the gravel, you basically have the footprint of the garage plus the footprint of the shed that becomes impervious, and whereas you had just the footprint of the shed before. So that's the increase, I guess, of the difference between the garage footprint and the shed footprint.
Okay.
And it's blocking sort of what would otherwise be, a pervious gravel surface.
Yep. Got it. I just want to be clear when we come up with some additional planting and location.
Yeah, and then I guess in terms of the, it's not clean. I can't really tell because there's angles sort of the way it cuts, but like the way that for 10.585C where the work is closer to than existing conditions and where the work is located toward the waterfront. I mean, it's not all of the garage footprint that's more than the shed footprint. It's sort of a portion of that garage footprint plus whatever portion of the shed is closer than the existing shed is located now. So
okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah. So these are easily remedied. I'm not sure how the board would like to handle it. We can certainly revise this to accommodate you, whatever you'd like.
Yeah, at this point, if you don't mind, Mr. Judd, it would be wise, I think, to just clean it up and submit it for the next meeting.
No problem.
I guess is the shed that's shown on the plan, that's an existing shed, or there's 2 existing sheds, correct?
That's correct. You are correct.
Okay. And do you know where the location of the shed that's going to be moved is going to go?
I'd like to huddle up with the client, and when we figure that out, we'll put that on the revised plan with these plantings. And we're also going to discuss Peter's comment about the location of the proposed plantings, as opposed to where they are shown now.
Well, is that smaller shed that's hash marked? Is that already existing?
Yes, that's an existing shed.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
that's
I
existing.
thought that was where the shed was going to be moved.
Yeah. That one right there, there are two existing sheds, correct? So that one, they were just gonna relocate it. So let me get together with Greg on this and we'll, I have all the comments and we'll make sure we get you what we believe is.
Well, is the relocated, the new location of the shed shown on the plan?
No,
Okay, so wherever that's located in terms of closer to the riverfront area is gonna change your mitigation calculations.
yeah, you mean closer, if it's closer, right?
Right.
Okay, so 2 weeks long enough, Mr. Judge?
Yeah, oh yeah, this, no problem.
Okay. Linda, you want to move to continue or close?
Yep. Yep, do we leave the public comment period open?
We need to close out.
You close.
Okay, yeah, Charpentier moves to close the public hearing for NOI 0282986.
Well, wait, if we're continuing the entire thing.
Oh, wait a minute.
we
That's
don't
right,
vote?
we're continuing it. We'll leave
Yeah.
it open.
Sorry.
Okay, Charpentier moves to continue NOI 0282986 at 424 Washington Street to the commission meeting of April 17th, which we will start at 2:30 in the afternoon.
So Commissioner Cook will second that then.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes,
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
and Member Villa.
Yes. All
Thank
right,
you.
we'll see you in a couple weeks. All righty, moving on to, oh, you're still here, Mr. Judd, so I guess you have another one. Here we go. Notice of intent, 2985, 5 Jacks Lane. Sal and Rose Ferreira, construction of a second floor addition, mitigation plantings and buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. Mr. Judd, Gateway Consultants, Inc., represented.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, John Judd representing the applicants for this proposed second story addition at 5 Jakes Lane. And thanks, Chuck, for putting that up. There is, so it's an existing dwelling as shown, and as part of this project, there is a deck that is over an existing shed that looks like Chuck is going to toggle in. So the entire site is within the buffer zone to a wetland that comes behind the house and off-site to the left of the property as shown. So what the proposal is to put a second story addition above the existing shed and remove that deck or a portion of that deck as shown. So we are proposing mitigation to be 200% of the proposed increase in impervious area. That planting, thanks Chuck, that shows the mitigation area of approximately 100 or just over 100 square feet of increase in impervious area, and we're doing 200% of the of that area to be directly adjacent to the wetland area. So that is proposed to be 234 square feet of mitigation directly adjacent to the resource area. We are showing erosion control, and that is really the essential aspects of the property, the project rather. There's going to be no work beyond that limit of erosion control, temporary erosion control fence as shown. We can answer any questions you might have.
I'm going to jump out of order here, just quickly, Mr. Judd. What is in the mitigation as we speak? In the mitigation area? What's there right now?
That's lawn.
Okay, so I'm going to open up for public comment. Anybody in the public who wishes to speak toward the project, towards the or against the project at 5 Jakes Lane may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or a handheld device.
We currently have 17 attendees and there's one hand up. Virginia.
Virginia, can you hear me?
I can. Thanks for taking my my call or whatever this is.
Yeah, name and for the record.
My name is Virginia Renahan, and I am at 56 Grapevine Road. I'm in a abutter to the property, and I have a couple of questions for Mr. Judd. I think I went down to the Conservation Commission today as a result of a mailing that I had received as an abutter. And I was just a little confused because the NOI 28, whatever it is, blah, 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 was submitted for a single family home. And this is actually a 2-family home. And from my perspective, it requires a little more due diligence be submitted at the time of the permit for certain things like a lighting plan and whatnot. So I was a little confused by that, and I will say that my reason being that I'm concerned that as a multifamily use, even though lighting may not be a conservation issue in the traditional sense, Governor Healy on 3/31/24 signed a proclamation of the environmental consequences. And I quote, "Whereas Massachusetts is home to dozens of nocturnal wildlife species, including threatened and endangered ones that rely on undisturbed night environments to hunt, mate, and thrive, with many statewide nonprofits such as Mass Audubon, Sierra Club, Massachusetts, Grow Native Massachusetts, and the Native Plant Trust working to conserve them and their habitats." And, you know, I guess my concern is what comes first, the chicken or the egg? You know, you're voting on something that would seem to me that the notice of intent is flawed in that it's for a single family home and not a multifamily. And I didn't really have an opportunity to review with the building department because they weren't, you know, available for that. But it does require permits be submitted, 3000K lighting, fully shielded. I'm not opposed to, I just need to see the plans, I guess is what I'm saying. And so for me, this is kind of like the cart before the horse. And you know, you can go to the assessor's office and see the field card, and the assessment indicates that the building they applied for a 2-family transition back in 2008. So the application itself is a little flawed, and I think that it's important that those things are noted and followed. And for me, you know, right now, the rear lighting is of concern because there's a timer, compact fluorescent that's on. It comes on at 7:20, 7:19. So it's been on as early as 7:11. It's on all night long. There's another light as I'm looking at the building on the right-hand side that's on 24/7. With the exception of last night, somebody must have been there and they turned it on. They turned it off, but then they turned it on at dusk and it was on all night. And those are conservation issues for me, both the proclamation that our governor signed at the end of March, March 31st. I'm happy to get a copy to all of you on that. But I would hope that we not proceed, you know, not recklessly, because nobody's, you know, I don't believe that you people are reckless or don't have, you know, the citizens of Gloucester, you have our good intentions. But I'm just, you know, I'm just raising the flag that as somebody who's lived in the neighborhood for a long time, 30 years, and I just so happen to be an amateur astronomer and You know, so I'm out in the backyard and everybody and their brother has a light with a timer and overlighting. They don't follow the lighting ordinance. They don't pull the permits that are proper. And now that I'm, you know, bearing down on 70 and retired, I'm interested in dark skies. And I also share that with my neighbors. They all have access to my Wi-Fi. They can look through my telescope at night. I'm a NASA Eclipse ambassador. I'm happy to give all of you eclipse glasses for Monday's eclipse. I'm not trying to be a grouch or anything. I just trying to follow the rules.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if you're listening still, Virginia, we really don't get into whether they're two families or not two families. We look at the impact of the project being proposed as it relates to the resource. So this may, but usually that's not a functioning factor in our decision. That said, is there anyone else who wants to speak, Chuck? No one?
There's no other hands up at this time.
Seeing none, hearing none, close public comment period. Okay, Mr. Judd, so it looks like we got a little bit of a light pollution thing going on here. I don't know what, if you want to try to respond to that person's concerns.
You know, we could just ask the applicant to you know, maybe use less illumination at night. If maybe put it on a timer for a certain period of time, we can certainly ask them to do that. Other than that, I really have no other comment.
Okay, so commissioners, why don't we go to roll call comments from commissioners?
Member Charpentier.
I have no comments.
Member Cook.
Yes, I just need some clarification because on the plan, it says it's a proposed 18 by 16 second floor addition. Then you look at it and it says proposed second floor porch coming out. So is that entire area the second floor addition that's going to be covered, or is there a porch that's going out there also?
Should I answer that, Mr. Chairman, or?
Yep, hold up. So you done, Bill? Is that your question?
Yeah, that's it. I just need it clarified because I don't know if it's one or two.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, Chuck.
Member Sergeant.
I'd like a 2-year monitoring for the mortality of mitigation plantings.
Member Terry.
Yeah, my only comment is about the location of the mitigation plantings. I'd like to see them a little bit to the northeast, which I think is a little closer to the core of the wetland area where they are, as they are sort of that area on the left side of the house as you're looking at the plan. I looked at the satellite images, but it looks like it's like a finger-like extension out from the main part of the wetland area that just goes towards the road between this house and the house on the other side. I think the core of the wetland area is more towards the back of the house, so I'd like to see sort of the wetland mitigation area be closer to that and sort of, you know, along kind of like near where the corner of the house is in that area, a little bit up to the northeast from where the location is shown. And just to the abutter who is commenting, I guess if there's a light ordinance in the city, it's not really a concern of us. That would be more of a building commissioner or a concern or something like that, or whoever is the enforcement person for the light ordinance. I'd recommend to go and investigate that further, but that's just a sort of separate legal kind of framework than what we deal with.
Bella.
Yeah, actually, I want to dovetail on to that comment. I don't know, Chuck, if you have a moment, I'm sure you don't, but it wouldn't hurt to see if there is any, you know, to double down on what Peter just said. You may already have the answer to this, but if there is any ordinance, regulations, or recently installed state regulations that we should be doing this, I'd like to know, so we're not tripped up. That's all.
Yeah, I can check in with them. I mean, it's always, you know, good neighborly to shield your lights and not be, you know, blasting light onto neighbors' properties and stuff like that. So if there's something that can be looked at, then we good.
Great. Okay, so all the commissioners have spoken. Do you want us to move on? Are we ready to move on this, or do people need more time? Do we want to continue? What's the play?
We still need to have, Mr. Judd respond to Bill's comments. Did we have that?
Not yet. Thank you, Linda. So if I could, Bill, the intent, there's an existing deck that's above a storage shed. So the storage shed is going to remain. That's below the second story addition. So what you're seeing is 107, I believe 117 feet of additional impervious area that's proposed beyond that shed. So it's above it. So I hopefully that clears it up. And then there is a deck associated with the addition that's going to be that's going to go connect to the house, and that's going to be parallel with that addition. So I'm not sure if that makes it clearer to you, but the deck is going to be pervious, and it's going to be over that concrete patio anyway that's below it. So below the second story addition is an existing storage shed and a concrete patio.
But they're both on the,
They're stacked.
It's on top. The proposed addition is going to be second story. It's a split level. It's a split level house.
okay, so what's below the addition?
Below the addition is an existing shed that's up against the house, and a concrete patio that goes around the house.
So is the deck, the new deck, going to be attached to the second floor?
Yes,
And there'll be no deck on the first floor?
correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right, if nobody has issues, anything else to add? Want to move to close the hearing, Linda?
Yep. Charpentier moves to close the hearing, the public hearing for NOI 0282985 at 5 Jacks Lane.
Commissioner Cook seconds?
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Lettieri,
Yes.
Member Gullo.
Yes. Okay, want to move on to approve the project, Linda?
Charpentier moves to approve NOI 0282985 at 5 Jack Lane with the aforementioned conditions of the 2-year mortality for the mitigation plantings and moving the mitigation plantings more toward the wetlands area.
Commissioner Cook seconds?
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Lettieri,
Yes.
and Member Gullo.
Yes. You're all set.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
good night.
Okay. Next up, we move into certificates of compliance. I don't see anything, and we slipped into violations. Is that correct, Chuck?
Yes.
And we're reviewing enforcement order RDA 1767 Atlantic Street water line.
Yep.
Is someone here for that?
Yes, we have, let's see.
Virginia, if you're trying to get on, we can't reopen your the public comment period after it's been closed. You'll have to get on at the next meeting.
Matt Conley should be joining us here. Yep.
Name and address it. Name and address, sir.
Yeah, good evening. Matthew Connolly of Nutter, McLennan and Fish, 155 Seaport Boulevard, Boston, here tonight on behalf of Procopio. I believe Scott Cameron, Chuck, is also in the audience.
He should be proning now.
Yes, well, thank you. As you may recall, we were here 2 weeks ago, and we had talked about the two parts of the enforcement order related to the water main work at Atlantic Street. At the meeting, you approved a restoration plan for the embankment work and the restoration work related to the enforcement order. At the time, we were close to a settlement agreement with the city on how to proceed on the culvert repair and replacement. And I'm happy to say tonight that we have finalized an agreement with the city on the enforcement, on the culvert work at a very high level we've negotiated a resolution where the city will replace the culvert and take on the permitting of that work in exchange for a payment from Procopio in order to make that. And so as part of that agreement, both the city and us wanted to come before the commission to notify you of that agreement and also to ask that you remove the culvert portions from your enforcement order. And so Scott will talk about the restoration work that's been completed to date in the timeline, but the goal tonight would be for you to remove the culvert work or conditions in the enforcement order, to acknowledge the continued work on the restoration plan, permit the water main work to proceed. There is a time of the essence need to get that going as soon as possible, and then hopefully to lift the enforcement order. I'll turn it over to Scott to talk about the work that's been done on the embankment work and the restoration side.
Scott, name and address when you get on. Up there.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, and thanks, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Scott Cameron with the Moore and Cameron Group, 66 Elm Street in Danvers, Massachusetts. Here on behalf of Procopio Companies. Thanks for having us again. Would it be okay for me to share my screen?
Sure.
All right. I'm as that's popping up, I just pulled up the restoration plan that we looked at the last meeting. So on Monday morning, I mobilized with the Procopio construction team. Nate Procopio was there running the equipment. We had a mini excavator, rubber treads with a bucket and basically what's like a two-fingered pick that we can use to very selectively pick rocks out. We also had a larger a pick for larger rocks, but we did get in, and if you recall, the charge was to basically revisit the whole shoulder of the road, get all the gravel out of that area. We had a couple of different cross sections on what we were expecting to run into when we got into this to restore it, which was a combination of kind of restoring the stone with a combination of like the larger boulders and the rocks in certain areas. We had a vegetated option that was for a different area that would use a compost log or two to shore it up and more of an organic edge on the road. And then there's some cleanup work further down just to restore a shoulder that's looks like a regular place where people pull off to take pictures, and it's just worn down to sediment. So on Monday, I was there for most of the day, oversaw the work personally. I had them carefully remove all of the large boulders. We stockpiled them in the road. We removed all the gravel down between 18 to 24 inches below the pavement edge, down to where we hit kind of the original native soil, and that's where we kind of left that all in place. And we worked that all the way down to the culvert. I pulled out all the gravel. There's been a lot of concern about the gravel maybe coming in along and around the culvert. There's some gaps we could see, and there's some gravel in the stream. So we carefully pulled all that gravel out. This is handwork. This was handwork, standing in the stream in boots and pulling that out. And I did pull out all the rock and stone behind it, and we carefully pulled out all the loose gravel behind it. I came back in with filter fabric. So we put that all back behind it. We started placing the rocks back in, and then we top dressed that whole edge up past the culvert, a little past the culvert. So we had shown this pink line up to the culvert. I felt in the field we need to go a little bit past that to address that, and that's let's see if I get a picture. So right about this part is where we ended it, and then you can see it transition back to kind of the native soil. So then we haven't done much of the compost tube work yet. With this weather coming in, I stopped them. Everything right now is shored up with a whole bunch of compost socks, and I can bring up a picture here. I do have some pictures I can show. Let me switch this over. I'm just going to show you some of the work in progress here. Did my email pop up here?
Not your email, but the photo did.
The photo, yeah. It's sorry, their emails, their photos embedded in emails. So just so you can kind of get a better feel for it. So this is we've already removed and started putting the rocks back in this position here. But you can see how all the native vegetation is there. We were very, very particular about how we were removing everything. This is resetting some of the rocks. You know, we had plenty of hay and material available. This is a closer, you can see the fabric. And all this was cut, so it's not over the vegetation. This was all cut and trimmed at the toe of the rocks. So, and this is in and around the culvert. You can see how much different this looks compared to what it was. All the gravel's gone. You can see how we've embedded the fabrics all behind this to keep all the soil in place. So we cleaned all this up. There's no more soil. There's gravel on this rock down here. There's kind of gravel down here. I was in myself picking that out. So I do feel that they put a lot of care and attention into this to shore this up. This spot here that I'm looking at, it looks to me like all the water, a lot of the water from the road comes in from the road right through this spot. So I'll be taking a close look at that tomorrow when I'm back up there, just to make sure that that's shored up and held up over tonight's weather. And then as we go further down the road, this is the gravel that was taken out. So all of this gray, you know, manufactured stone is what was taken out. You know, and just again, close-up shots of the fabric. This is when we were prepping the area. So that's that little bucket. So you can see how we're picking things right along the edge of the grass. It was very, very particular. So I just want to share this to let you guys know and reassure you that we are, you know, Procopia is doing a lot of work to make sure that everything's protected. This is kind of the end. This is still cleaned up. You can see the mulch sock. This has been loamed. The coastal seed mix is down, and they put hay down on top of it to keep it a little protected and warm, keep some moisture in there. That coastal seed mix takes a little longer to propagate. And then this is an area further down in the shoulder stabilization. I had them add another row of mulch socks. There's a 12-inch we added on the marsh side, and then the 8-inch along the road. We're going to see how this holds up tonight. I really need to see where the water's rushing through. I reviewed this with Chuck. Chuck did come down, which I'm very appreciative of. I want to see where the water is coming out of this area. So I kind of curbed it up with the mulch berm along the edge of the road to see where this is standing. I'll check that out tomorrow. We might put some rock down the area where this comes from the road into the marsh, because the loam will just never hold up. And we want to make sure that's stable, but I want to see that tomorrow. So we're going to make a field call tomorrow on this. And then the rest of this work will get done on Friday is the plan. Again, weather pending. So do you guys have any questions about, you know, the progress we made this week and what's been going on?
So we're gonna try to open up for public comment first, and then we'll cycle back to the commissioners. So
sure.
Anybody in the public who wishes to speak for or against the enforcement order at 1767 Atlantic Street may do so by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen, or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
There are 14 attendees present, and nobody has their hands up at this time.
Seeing none, hearing none, close the public comment period. Why don't we go into commissioner roll call comments?
Member Charpentier.
No comments.
Member Cook.
Are we taking this in multiple pieces? As far as the work that's been done on the edge of the road, you know, I see it every morning, so I don't have any issues with it. But the other part of this, I don't think that we've really discussed yet, is the culvert.
What's there? What do you mean? Culvert itself? They've come to an agreement. The city, I believe, is going to. They're in a partnership to fix the culvert. Did you not get that memo? Bill, can you hear me? Bill, can you hear me?
Barely.
Okay. So did you? They came to an agreement with the city on who's going to deal with how they're going to work together to deal with the culvert.
Okay, yes, but I don't think we can close the enforcement order until we have that deal with the city. That's my opinion.
The deal's already in place. The agreement's in place with the city, and the money's been paid to the city.
Right.
It has been.
Yes. Yeah. So they're asking for the enforcement order. The enforcement order would still stay in place for the remainder of the replication or the restoration work that they're doing along the bank. And the city is going to take over the permitting and the installation of the culvert.
That's all been agreed to and paid for, basically.
Yeah, but I have great concerns about that because that's happened before and the city hasn't come through and done it. So I do have some concerns about that, but treat that separately.
Member Sergeant?
Many thanks to the Gloucester team that worked hard for this resolution. However, I must express some disappointment that the replacement of the culvert is still an outstanding issue. I'm wondering if the city is committed to a time frame when they're likely to submit an NOI for this work. And might it also include the stormwater component that was part of the earlier NOI?
Member Terry?
Are we allowed to see and review the settlement agreement? I'm assuming it passes all liability for the new culvert work to the city and it releases Procopio from that. So I don't see how they would have to, how the enforcement order would sort of still apply to that if you know, they're kind of released from that. I guess, you know, we should probably take a look at that and confirm that. I don't know if it's possible to keep the enforcement order open if the culvert responsibility is now within like the city's scope, so to speak. So other than that, for this restoration work is great. Thanks for, you know, advancing that work, and it looks good, and it's a, you know, it's a good, the restoration stuff is, you know, I have no comments on that, but on the culvert, I don't know if that's outside of our hands now, if that's already been completed or not.
Yeah, I sent that yesterday. I can resend it again. But yes, the enforcement order that would then stay in place for the remainder of the restoration work. You know, once that's all stabilized and everything, then, you know, that would be removed at that point, but then the culvert work would be done by the city. Member Gullo?
Yeah, basically, I would reiterate what Peter said, but I don't think we can, I think we gotta vote on it, one, obviously, but I think at this point in time, we really can't hold it open anymore based on what I've heard to date.
We can still hold it open just for the restoration work.
Correct.
We're basically removing the culvert
Portion. So
yes.
how do we put that in a pliable?
It would just be we'd amend the existing enforcement order to now just reflect that it's just going to continue with the restoration portion.
Okay. Do you want to take a bite of that, Linda, or what we do?
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Okay, so we're gonna put forth a motion to trying to write this out, say this correctly.
We amend the enforcement order to solely focus on the remaining restoration work.
Okay. So I'm gonna put forth a motion to amend the order to only include
The restoration.
point, is that what we're setting that aside, correct? The culvert work.
Can we amend it to also include wordage that the city will take over ownership of the culvert replacement?
I think so, yeah, we can add to this, but I think the ultimate goal for the applicant at this point is to get the enforcement order lifted. Or at least a portion to control the applicant's responsibility. Right? Yeah. So we want to, again, reset, send me on the right path again, Chuck. I'm confused.
Yep, so you want to amend the enforcement order so that it only includes the remaining work for the restoration.
Okay, so I'm gonna put forth a motion that only includes the removal of the enforcement order based on us.
We're keeping the enforcement order in place. We're just amending it so it just will now cover the restoration that's underway.
Are we going to add the piece about?
So the enforcement order will stay in place until everything's been stabilized and plants are growing and everything like that. At that point, we'll remove the enforcement order. At this point, we're keeping it in place, but just for the restoration. The city has agreed to the replacement of the culvert based on the agreement, the settlement agreement. So we're removing any discussion of the culvert in the enforcement order.
I guess I'm uncomfortable with removing the culvert from the enforcement order until I could see what the actual terms of the settlement agreement says in terms of, you know, shifting responsibility for it. I don't know if did you send around the actual settlement agreement, and are we allowed to see that, or is that sort of kept confidential?
I did. I sent it to you yesterday.
Yeah, we did see, it did fly by yesterday. Mr. Conley, we're a little confused on that, well, I am. But would you be okay with a 2-week, coming back in 2 weeks so we can clarify, one, get a better look at the document itself, and two, we're obviously headed in the direction I think you want, but I want my commission and myself to understand it clearly, what we're gonna vote on. Is that okay?
Yes. If tonight, what is critical for timing purposes is if you would permit the water main work to proceed. So if you could carve that out or otherwise authorize the water main work to continue. The rest of it, if the commission needs more time to read the agreement or something like that, that's fine. But the water main work basically needs to start by Monday.
Okay. So can we make a motion to allow the water installation to continue? Is that what we're looking to do here?
I think I can do that.
Okay.
Do you want me to take a stab at it?
Sure.
Okay, Charpentier moves to amend the enforcement order, RDA 1767 Atlantic Street water line, to allow the water main work to begin and to remove the culvert from the enforcement order, to keep the order in place until the restoration work is completed. Does that cover it?
I think it does.
All right.
Do we have a second?
Commissioner Cook seconds it.
So you're removing the portion with the culvert then?
We're allowing the water main work to go ahead. We're removing the portion of the culvert, and we're keeping the enforcement order in place until the restoration work is completed.
Does that work for you, Chuck?
That works for me. I thought Member Viteri had concern about the removing of the culvert portion at this time.
Yeah, I missed your email earlier, but I just looked through the settlement agreement now, and I'm fine with it now.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded.
Commissioner Cook seconded it.
Okay. Roll call. Member Charpentier.
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
Member Sargent.
Yes.
Member Viteri.
Yes.
And Member Bella.
Okay, gentlemen, that was a long way around, but I think we got where you wanted to be, or where you needed.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Chuck, I'll call you tomorrow on my way up if you want to stop by and meet me.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, I was out there this afternoon and looked pretty buttoned up, so looks good.
Sounds good. I'll see you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for parsing that out, Linda. I was caught and I didn't know what I was doing. Thank you. Okay.
Hello.
We're up to enforcement order 24-01, 137 Wingersheek Road.
Yep, and we have Meredith Fine has her hand up. I did see, let's see, there's Mr. Nyland.
There we go. We all set?
Think so. Name and address for the record.
So, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Richard Nyland, 2 Beechwood Road, but I'm at Lynch D. Simone and Nyland in Post Office Square in Boston. Meredith Fine is with me this evening, as well as Bill Tebow and his daughter Gianna. I don't know, did you promote, could you promote them as well, Chuck?
Sure. I didn't know.
So, yeah, so Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, we received an enforcement order with respect to this property at 137 Wingersheek. You know, our intention is to be in compliance. I think we have a difference of opinion in terms of whether or not we are in compliance and what we need to do to get into compliance. I received an enforcement order that asked me to indicate that we were supposed to file a response and a plan by April 1st. I went through the provisions within the enforcement order and I did respond on April 1st, but I didn't provide you with a plan because when I looked at what the enforcement order was based upon, I came to a different conclusion in terms of what's taking place out there. First of all, I just want to assure the commission there is no physical activity that's taking place right now, so that in terms of the cease and desist, what we're arguing over is a walkway that's in between the house and the ocean. So there is no physical work that's taking place presently. The history was that Mr. Tebow came in front of the commission back in 2011 to construct a pool on the property. At the time, the commission stated, yes, they would approve that. However, they wanted the plantings to take place first, some dune plantings, because there were some areas that they believed had been opened and or had been adversely affected or altered. So the deal is that we could not do anything with the pool until we did the planting. So we brought Mary Rimmer on, and she designed a program, and we planted about 1,600 square feet of plantings in the spring of, I'm not sure if it was 2012 or 2013. And at that point in time, Lisa Press was the agent, and she allowed us to go forward with the pool. And so since then, and I'm not sure if all the clearly you can tell from the pictures that Chuck had that there were a couple of areas that had been altered, that were clearly the plantings you could see that took where there was areas where there's some jet skis that were stored. And over time, what's happened is we've got this path that's in between two larger dunes that are stabilized, and the plankings and walkway or the boardwalk takes it in between those two existing dunes down to the water. The order of conditions expired for the pool and the work back in 2020. And since that time, we've seen, because the sand comes up, it's unabated, it goes over the whatever we want to call that boardwalk and up towards the house. There's a dune and in terms of where the coastal beach is. So you indicated that there were violations of 4 resource areas. The first is the coastal beach, which is the area between the low water and the dune line. And so, we looked, and there's no activity there. There's a portion of the ramp of that boardwalk may extend, I think, a little bit into the coastal beach. It's difficult to determine, but there's nothing else that's impeding the values or the performance standards for coastal beach. The second resource area is the coastal dune, which is landward of the coastal beach. And as I said, there's no activity taking place in the dunes that are covered with dune grass. Those plantings were enhanced back in 2011. The piping plover which I'll talk about in a second. That's been mapped up in that area, which is well above the high tide line, and so there's no physical work that's taking place up there as well. As a matter of fact, I talked to Mike DeRosa to ask him about increasing the density of the beach grass in those dunes, so that we can make sure that they remain stable. The third resource area is the land subject to coastal storm flowage, which, as you know, is the 100-year storm. There are no performance standards. The commission has indicated that we have placed an alteration in land subject to coastal storm flowage, as well as the dune which counts the square footage, I believe, of the boardwalk of about 1,900 square feet. Again, there's no blocking of any waters that are coming from the ocean up to the property. The fourth was the mesa habitat, and I know the commission had stated to me that there were rules with mesa, which is sorry for the acronym. That's the Endangered Species Act. And I was under the impression that the commission led me to believe that there were rules that stated that you couldn't have motorized vehicles in the area, and that's why the path had to be so small. So, I went online and I looked at the definition of take. We looked at where the piping plover, where the habitat is, priority habitat is, and it extends. It's interesting. It actually extends down to the water, which doesn't make sense in terms of piping plover. I'm from Ipswich, so I'm well aware we have piping plover habitat at Cranes Beach, and everything is above the high tide line. I don't see anything below the high tide. But anyway, and so we certainly have abided by the requirements for protecting piping plover. There have been times when Natural Heritage has come by and they've actually flagged the area in the dune, and so we stay out of that area. So that's why I wanted to come tonight and to talk in terms of how we look at the boardwalk. We think that the boardwalk is actually helpful to the vitality of the area because it keeps everybody out of the larger dune area, the piping plover habitat, and just takes them down to the ocean. The reason that I asked Meredith to join us is that she's had some experience on this motorized vehicle issue. And so I'm going to turn it over to her. It might be best maybe if we wait until we get through that, and then we'll entertain questions from the commission. And Mr. Tebow and his daughter Gianna, after I told them what the how the commission had responded with respect to what they were looking for, they've gone out and taken a look at other users on Wingershik Beach to get a sense of what's taking place out there. The last thing I'll say is that one of the members at the last meeting raised a question about whether or not motorized vehicles are allowed on Wingershik Beach and Good Harbor. And I found some regulations that were passed in 2022, but those apply to public beach and not to private beaches and to the parking area. So I'm going to turn it over to Meredith to talk to the question that the commission has with respect to motorized vehicles on the beach. Thank you.
Thank you, Chip. Can you all hear me?
Yep. Name and address for the record.
Meredith Fine, 108 East Main Street, Gloucester. And I'm representing Mr. Tebow as well. The reason that Chip asked me to help with this is that there's only the law about motorized vehicles on beaches is very recent, and I played a part in helping to create it. And so I have a unique opportunity here to explain this relatively new law, which was created well after the orders of condition were issued for this property. I want to start with Mr. Tebow's deed, which specifically allows him to use vehicles on this easement, which is described as an easement for passage on and along over said beach, on foot and in vehicles. So first of all, we start with he has a private right to use vehicles on this easement. And then I was involved in a case called Mazzola versus O'Brien, which ended up going to the appeals court on this very question of are ATVs, in the case, the O'Brien case, are ATVs allowed on the sandy parts of beach easements? And the answer was yes, absolutely. And the Mazzola versus O'Brien case was on Coffin's Beach, just closer to the pillars. So it's extremely on point to Mr. Tebow's situation. So in the lower court case, the Superior Court case, the court noted that this was what's called a case of first impression, that there were no other cases on this exact question. And then the court said that it is not uncommon for people to use motor vehicles to get to the beach, and that many uses of the beach require motor vehicles. For example, boating requires a motor vehicle. And the court also discussed one of the issues in this case was, do the motorized vehicles damage the environment? And the court said, no, not in this case, where the vehicles were using only the sandy part of the easement, and that the Mazzolas had not established any damage to the seagrass in the dunes. And that you can't make an assumption that ATV use contributes to general environmental issues, coastal issues. So the Superior Court was 100%, the O'Briens could use motorized vehicles over their easement. And I want to note that in that case, I deposed Ken Whitaker, who many of you remember as the conservation agent. And Ken also said, and all these documents I'm happy to provide. And Ken said that the only reason that motorized vehicles can cause harm is if they get into the grass. But otherwise, if they're on the sandy part of the easement, they're not causing environmental harm. Then Mr. Mazzola appealed to the appeals court, which also supported the lower court, and said that the O'Briens had 100% right to use motorized vehicles over their easement. And one of the pieces of evidence in this case was a letter from the environmental police, Ryan Lennon of the environmental police, to Mr. Whitaker, saying that it has long been the environmental police's practice to allow people to use motorized vehicles to bring equipment to the beach and boats to the beach. So the law, as we are sitting here today, does not distinguish between pedestrians and motorized vehicles. That the law said, what the law says is, what matters is whether the dunes, the vegetated parts of the dunes are being damaged, doesn't matter how. And so if the motorized vehicle is just going over sand, there is nothing wrong with that. Thank you for your attention, and I'll turn it over, I believe, to Mr. Tebow.
Actually, just before I want to, well, the one thing I forgot to thank you very much, Meredith. One thing I want to remind the commission is there is no vegetation, and nor has there ever been vegetation under where this this walkway is that goes out to the ocean from the house. And secondly, there's no suggestion that interferes with the ability of sand to move by wind or water, which is the key thing for the dune. Is you want to make sure that you're not interfering. You can't put a barrier up, and that's what, you know, we don't have. This isn't a barrier. So I just want to assure you that there isn't any vegetated dune that's at issue in terms of where we are with this path. So next, I just want to turn it over to, when I explained to Bill what the commission was looking for. He's very familiar. He's been on the beach for more than a decade with his family and spends time and enjoys it. And so he wanted to just bring to your attention what he's done out there and what he finds with others in his area. So if you could share, I think you need to share a screen, Chuck, will that be with you, Bill, or with Gianna?
I think Gianna has to be welcomed in.
Okay. Is she not as a panelist? And then can you share the picture?
I don't think they welcomed her in, so she's on.
There she is.
Hi there, can everyone hear me?
There we go.
Name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Gianna Tebow, 10 Huntington Avenue, Boston, Massachusetts.
And you, sir, Mr. Tebow, name and address for the record, please.
Excuse me?
Your name and address for the record as well.
Oh, same thing, 10 Huntington Avenue, Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay, Mr. Nyland, and the purpose?
Yeah, you want to go ahead, John? You're going to walk through those, the pictures that you have?
Yes,
Can I talk and while she presents the pictures, Chip?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so Gianna, why don't we, I took the liberty, I listened to, a couple weeks ago, I listened to the board with some of their, what they were looking for, and what they said was, they didn't want a pathway over 3 feet, no ramps, no boardwalks, no disturbance of the dunes. So after that meeting, I took the liberty of driving around Gloucester for less than an hour and just visiting Good Harbor and the public beach and the private beach of Coffins. And I'd like to just show some pictures of what we discovered or what we came about and saw, and just wanted to share those with the board. So Gianna, let's start with Good Harbor. I think it's Exhibit A.
absolutely. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
just let me know most
So
likely.
take us through the Exhibit A, I believe.
Bear with me.
So here's Good Harbor from an aerial looking down, just to give you an idea of it. And then Gianna, take us to the next picture. Here's the pathway or the bridge going from the roadway over to the beach, and that walkway pathway is roughly around 6 feet wide. And the next screen, Gianna, you can see the boardwalk there, and then next one. So you can see this. There's a concrete pad here that goes, which is a ramp that goes right into the sand. So, and that's like 5 or 6 feet wide. So that's just why I wanted to show you the ramp there going into the sand. Then we can go to the second exhibit on. That's another picture of that pathway from another angle. And then go to the other part, the next one, Gianna. Okay, and then here's another picture of the public access from Good Harbor. And that pathway is over 10 feet wide. In the next picture. Again, another picture closer up. And then this appears to be from an aerial. You zoom in, they have a boardwalk here that's on the sand. So go ahead, Gianna. And then Wingashi, we go to Wingashi to the public beach. Again, an aerial to the right of the parking lot, and then take us to the next exhibit, Gianna. Some more closer up. Go ahead. And here's an access. It looks like a road, a vehicle access going to the beach. And this pathway is 10 to 15 feet wide. And you can actually see where they mow or they maintain the vegetation on each side of that pathway to make for overgrowth. And next picture. Again, another picture, you can see a better picture of where they maintain the grass on each side of that, where the water is there. Again, another picture showing it from another angle. Go ahead. Close-up pictures, you can see where they're cutting the grass. Go ahead. That's another pathway going off to the right into the dunes. Another picture, Gianna. And then here's another pathway, 10 to 15 feet. And then there's more pictures going on. Go ahead, Gianna. And here's a picture I wanted to show. Again, with the strong driving winds. And this is what we want to explain. And I've got some pictures I just forwarded Gianna. I thought Chip had them, but basically the strong winds, the sand overtakes these dunes and just naturally widens the pathways. And I just wanted to show where the sand has blown into this pathway onto the dunes. Go ahead, Jim. And again, the pathway being over 10, 15 feet wide. And here's another, this is over by the food stand. This is the main pathway coming from the parking lot going in. You can see where there's a boardwalk, there's an asphalt dry parking lot going to a concrete pad, going to the boardwalk that's underneath the sand that's been there for years. And if we go to the next picture, you'll see a better picture of it covered. There's a picture of the boardwalk being covered farther down in the pathway. Go ahead. This pathway widens out to 8 to 10 feet wide, going to the beach. Go ahead, Gene. This is on Coffin's Beach, as we're starting from the public beach, working our way down to Coffin's Beach. This is an aerial, and as we zoom in, this one's quite unique. Go ahead, one more picture, G. So this pathway is actually paved. They paved this pathway with concrete, and then it goes into an paved it with asphalt, and it goes into a concrete ramp, and you can see where they've cut the vegetation back on both sides of the pathway to maintain the pathway. Go ahead. And then you can see where the asphalt goes into the concrete, and they actually get a stone wall there on the left-hand side. And then you can see where, again, the vegetation has been cut back on each side to maintain access to the pathway. Go ahead. Another picture. Okay, next one. Here's another pathway on the beach, aerial. And I can get the name of this street. I didn't have that. I didn't have a chance to put it on there because we had different areas of the beach and we weren't sure which ones they went to. But this is the next one moving down the beach that we came across. Again, aerial 10 to 15 feet wide. Go ahead. As you can see, the sand is overtaking the dunes and widening that pathway. And, that's at least 10 to 15 feet wide. Next one, Jim. Go ahead. And here's another pathway on Coffin's Beach. This one actually have a fence on both sides of the pathway to keep the dunes back. Go ahead, G. As you can see, the fence here, which is holding the vegetation back. And this is unique too, because not only the sand here, but they actually took asphalt grindings and put it on top of the sand. And this pathway is, 10 to 15 feet wide. Go ahead. That's another picture of it. Go ahead.
I think we get the gist.
Well, let me just show. I got a couple more. That's all. I just want to show it to you. Go ahead, Gianna. Let's kind of run through a little quicker, please. So here's another pathway on Bailey Lane. Another one 8 to 10 feet wide. Go ahead. Go ahead. And here's another one. This is halfway down the beach. This is a boardwalk that's laid down that is used for public access on the private beach. Oh, go ahead, Gianna. Another picture. As you can see, go ahead. This is laying right on top of the sand. And then here again, this is coming off the paved road. There's asphalt grindings here to stabilize the dirt or the ground, be able to get to the walkway. So, all the things that the board said, it was just like all these other pathways I've seen, it just doesn't seem to, correlate. So I just wanted to bring that to somebody's attention and just show what we found in a matter of like an hour just driving around this area. And I'm sure if we spent a half a day, we could inundate the board with more pictures, which I'm sure they don't want. But thank you for your time on that.
So the point, thank you, Bill. So the point that we wanted to show you is that they're, dunes have a very critical function here. And what we want to make sure is that the dunes on our property are doing that. And Bill showed you that we've got sand that's overtaking the dunes on the edges. It's already lost some. So what we want to do is to come back with a plan so that we can enhance the existing stabilized dune with more vegetation so that it isn't overtaken. But I wanted Bill to have an opportunity to speak to the commission and to show you exactly what's taking place out there, because as I said, we want to be in compliance, but we also want to be treated fairly.
Understood. Okay, I'm going to open this. Well, the enforcement order. You think I should open it up for public comment, Chuck? Nobody really.
You can. We don't necessarily have to, but
in the wings in case it's staying up late. So right now I'm going to move to allow anybody who wishes to speak towards the enforcement order at 137 Wingersheep Road may do so now by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 11 attendees and there are no hands up at this time.
Seeing none, hearing none, a closed public comment period. So I don't know if commissioners want, I'd like to take all this in, you know, with the applicant's pictures and some thoughts, but if we want to do roll call comments, we can for commissioners, Chuck.
Member Charpentier,
No comments.
Member Cook,
Yeah, I've got a few. One, almost all of those areas that you took pictures of are association access points where 60, 70, 80 families reside. In the case of the public beach, you know, thousands of people on a weekend. So it's not a single family access point to the beach. Point that out. All single family homes on the beach have a 3-foot walkway. That's all we've ever allowed. That's all everybody's ever allowed is a 3-foot walkway for a single family home. Second, as a lot of people down there have in their deeds, they have the right to launch and retrieve vehicles from the beach. However, as the state police and the environmental police have pointed out, because they've been down numerous times down there, that does not, nowhere in your deed does it say you're allowed to use a motorized vehicle to launch and retrieve it. I grew up down there, so I know we used to pull them up by hand every season. Bring the boats down, bring them back up, pull them by hand. That's the way you had to do it. The environmental police have stopped and cited numerous people on the beach for trying to bring an ATV down to launch and retrieve like a 12-foot Lund boat. According to the environmental police, no ATVs are allowed on the beach. If they are, they have to be fully registered. You have to wear a helmet. You have to be licensed the whole 9 yards for all of that, right? National Heritage does not allow the use of vehicles on the beach between April 1st and September 1st in a piping plover habitat. Those are simple. The enforcement orders that were laid out prior that were 3 foot. That was a 3-foot access way, not a 8 or 10 foot wide boardwalk. The enforcement order is to go back and get the applicant to comply with the previous enforcement orders.
Okay, next.
Member Sargent.
I agree with, the previous comments. I just want to say that we need to realize that the boardwalk right now is not permitted, and that in vehicles on the beach is usually what National Heritage states, and they would have to opine on this if there is an NOI that's presented to us. And piping plover habitat goes to the ocean because birds do have to eat, and so that's part of their habitat. And I just want to thank the property owner for dropping a dime on his neighbors. Thank you.
I wasn't dropping a dime on my neighbors, but
yes, you were.
I was stating a fact. That's what's represented out there. And again, I don't understand why are dunes different? Do dunes react differently because it's a private pathway than a public pathway? Can dunes distinctify whether it's path or public or private?
About regulations, not about.
Well, a dune's a dune. So I don't understand.
My comment speaks to that. My comment speaks to that is that what you have as an order of conditions is a requirement that your pathway cannot be more than 3 feet. And as far as I know, you never appealed that order of conditions. So
it's expired.
I mean, this is the enforcement order. You're not in compliance with it. You never had a certificate of compliance for it. So you can't just let the order of conditions expire and then say you're not bound by it because you didn't do the work and completed the work that was required by it. So that's the issue to me, is that there was an order of conditions that said no motorized vehicles, and it said a 3-foot wide path, and that was never complied with. It was never appealed. So that is what your property is subject to and is bound by. And that's what the enforcement order is trying to bring back into compliance.
Chip?
Well, I want to wait until all the members, they have a process where each of the members speaks and then we speak afterwards. So I was just waiting until everyone had spoken.
Oh, I apologize. I'm not privy to a lot of these meetings, so I apologize.
Yeah, no, I've been here a number of times
I didn't
before.
like when somebody said I was ratting on my neighbors, so I don't, that wasn't the point I was making. The
Yeah.
point I was making is I was being singled out.
Is there anyone else who hasn't spoken, Mr. Chairman?
Have anything to add?
Was that?
Yes, Member Gola.
Yes. Linda, are you all set? Did you get here?
Yeah, I'm all set.
Yeah, me too. For the most part, I completely agree with Peter and Bill. I mean, we can split hairs. I think a lot of them, I like the pictures. They actually, I think actually help us a little bit in understanding what's going on there. That being said, I think we should probably, take the information that the applicant has given us. Why don't we continue it? We have a little work to do, but I completely agree with what Peter said. I think you need to go back and look at that previous one that expired and then, work your way back from that. But that's up to you. I can't tell you what to do. Obviously, the board is very concerned about this situation. We're not here to try and hurt anybody. We're here to protect the environment. That's what we do. And if we see something that seems out of place like this, we're going to go after it. And we are, concerned about it. So we're going to take the information you gave us today. We're going to review it. And it's 2 weeks. So we'll come back and review it again and see where we all land. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a couple of, thank you for your comments. A couple of things. I think to echo what Bill was saying, how dune functions isn't distinguished by whether or not it's a single family homeowner or an association. It still is a question in terms of whether or not that dune is able to be traveled and to be used. And that's what's taking place here. With respect to Mesa, I heard Mr. Cook a couple of weeks ago and I went looking. And he said that there's a provision under Mesa that you can't have motorized vehicles, and I can't find it. And I'm a lawyer, so if the commission can point me to where that regulation is, then I would like to see that. I'm not aware. Mr. Tebow has had vehicles on that beach, and there's no environmental police has ever pulled him over or anybody else down in that area. I'm not aware. I mean, there are ATVs that are on all along Wingersheep Beach and Good Harbor. So I'm not aware that that is illegal. Our view is that we want to make sure that that dune system is healthy and stable, and that's what we want to add to it. And the best way to deal with that, we believe, is to allow the boardwalk to stay at grade, so it's not interfering with sand moving up and down, that's what the function of a dune is. The sand is able to move by wind or water, and we're not interfering with that. So yeah, we'll take a look, and if you can point us to where these rules are that I can't find, that would be very helpful.
Okay. All right. So is 2 weeks enough to get back together, or you want more time, less time?
Well, I think we both have some things to do. So if Mr. Cook or Chuck or somebody can point me to where those are in the next couple of weeks, then we can come back. And if not, then we can just tell you that we'll be back. We can schedule for 2 weeks and then see what happens.
Sounds good. Okay. All right. Anyone else have anything to add before I close this up?
No, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Still have one other project here, correct? We have enforcement order for 14 Fort Hill Ave. I do not want to get into the details, which just dropped on us today, Chuck. Obviously, there were DeRosa's report. So I'll give them a few minutes, if that's it. And by the way, Chuck, we're gonna have to reinstate our policy of years ago, where we're gonna have 3 or 4 or 5 minute rebuttals. We'll be here till midnight again. So we'll deal with that later. Okay, so moving on to the next would be 14 Fort Hill Ave. Name and address for the record.
Mike DeRosa, DeRosa Environmental, 150 Newburyport Turnpike in Raleigh, Massachusetts.
Okay. Mr. DeRosa, we're kind of wrapping up here. We got this dropped on us. So if you just want to give us the headlines, that'd be great.
Yep, no, that's fine. I'll bumper sticker it as much as I can. Essentially, apologize for missing the site walk. I was out of the state at the time. Evan brought me up to speed. And she and I put together this document for you, and we'll look forward to discussing it at the next meeting. But essentially, it addresses what the commission's looking for. We're going to be doing a actually, I can share my screen here. I'll be quick though. This is the memo I sent out today that you guys received. We'll plan to talk about it in detail as Mr. Gula suggested at the next meeting. But essentially, we're going to start next week on the plant inventory. We're going to fly the site with our drone, get some low-level elevation data, photographs that we can then identify what plants are where. So the plant inventory is going to be the first thing. We're going to look at plant species composition, all these items, wildlife habitat work as well. And then I think what we're going to do is look at a reference site. We're going to try to find a reference site around the pond that has not been cut that we can compare to, because to do a damage assessment, we're going to have to compare it to something that's not damaged. And so we're going to do these same measurements at a reference site and then incorporate that into our restoration plan. I talk a little bit about plants, irrigation strategies. If we do find some invasive plants, which I think we will within that area, we may ask as part of our restoration plan to take those out and then replace them with appropriate native plants, just to be able to insert some what's supposed to be there. We talk about some other mitigation options that were brought up at the site walk, and then a proposed timetable. We're looking to hopefully have the mitigation plan, restoration plan together by May 15th for the May 15th meeting. That will give us time to get plantings in this spring. And then, but we still think a lot of the plant material that was cut will come back, and we'll be looking at that as part of our monitoring. We're going to set up a permanent photograph stations too, so we can monitor things as they develop over the growing season. But essentially that's it. And we'll come back to you in 2 weeks. Hopefully we'll have some information to share with the commission as well.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so at this point, I got to give the public a chance to speak as well. So why don't we open it up for public comment? We'd appreciate it if you keep it brief. Obviously, you'll have access shortly to the same document that we have here for everybody who's interested in this issue. So you won't be left in the dark. Just want you to know. So that being said, why don't we? Is there anyone who wants to speak for or against the enforcement order at Fort Hill Ave? May do so now by hitting the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen, or hitting *9 on your phone or handheld device.
We currently have 10 attendees and there are no hands up.
Okay, hearing none, seeing none, then I will close the public comment period, and we will see you, Mr. DeRosa, in how long? What do you want, a couple of weeks?
Yeah, 2 weeks is fine.
Are we doing commissioner comments?
Oh, I'm sorry, keep skipping over you people.
Member Charpentier.
Now, I just want to say that when these documents come in the day before or the day of, I for one work all day. I don't have time to read them, so it's very hard to make any kind of comments on these.
Understood.
Member Cook,
No comments.
Member Sergeant,
Thank you for the letter that was submitted late this afternoon as a response to this serious violation. At first read, I'm quite reluctant to endorse any addition, selective cutting and pruning as was proposed in the letter in the plant replacement section until ironclad safeguards are in place. I also draw exception to the characterization contained in additional restoration compensation opportunities section that seems to minimize the scope of this serious and possibly deliberate violation. I eagerly await a timely submission for a robust proposed restoration plan before the May 15th meeting. Thank you.
Member Bella,
Nothing to add.
Oh, you skipped me.
Peter, go ahead.
I think I did get a chance to quickly read the letter, so I'm glad we'll have some more time to fully consider it and the proposal. I'm happy to hear that there's plans for a restoration plan to be submitted. But I did take a look at our Gloucester wetland ordinance, and under section 1223(4), we have authority to issue penalties up to $4,000 for violations that constitute significant damage to wetlands. And I'd submit that, you know, there's the cutting on the neighbor's property and the cutting on this property, which, you know, I would be willing to consider as two separate incidents and two separate violations and two separate penalties up to $4,000 each. So I'm putting that on the table for consideration by the commission as a, you know, a penalty, administrative penalty for the cutting that was done here.
All right. With that said, I see Attorney Favazza. Before we vote on or discuss that further, Peter, there's one more person out here that wants to speak. Attorney Favazza, can you let him on the horn here? Sure.
I just promoted him.
I did close the public comment period, so please be quick, Mr. Favazza.
I appreciate that. Joel Favazza, Seaside Legal, 123 Main Street. I just wanted to respond briefly to the timing of today's response. A lot of the commissioners had left the site visit, and Evan and I spoke to Chuck and said, hey, you know, I don't know if we can get, you know, this is a Friday afternoon, your submission deadline had already passed for today's meeting. And we pointed that out. And in discussing with Chuck, it seemed that the preference was to at least get something in, even if it was day of. And I believe Evan even said it might be the same day as the meeting. And the kind of consensus at the time was something is better than nothing. We don't want to go 4 weeks without hearing some update. So get us some update, even if it is day of, and then we can go from there. So I didn't want the commission to think we were being cavalier or flouting the you know, deadline for submission. We knew the site walk took place after the deadline and it was impossible to get something in for this meeting, quote unquote, on time. And it was submitted so close to the meeting as a courtesy and trying to be cooperative and acquiesce to the request that something get filed before tonight's meeting, which was the reason for it. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Okay, Mr. DeRosa, so you still want 2 weeks?
Yep, 2 weeks is fine. We'll report back.
Before I close this, Chuck, so do we close out the hearing or?
I mean, it's an enforcement order, so it's not really, you know, we can just continue it. We don't have to, I don't think we have to vote on it.
Peter, and we talked about this as well, so maybe you can, you know, do a little digging yourself about the penalties, how they actually get addressed, whether we vote on it as a commission, whether we, you know, you can submit it individually. I have no idea. So why don't we look into that while we have our 2 weeks as well?
All right.
All right. Okay, so Mr. DeRosa, you can be on your way, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Oh,
Thank you very much, everyone.
We're gonna move to continue. Linda, can you move to continue this?
Yeah, Charpentier moves to continue enforcement order 24-0314 Fort Hill Ave, or yes, to the meeting of April 17th.
Got it.
Commissioner Cook seconds.
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Terry,
Yes.
and Member Gullo.
Yes. All right, thank you, Mr. DeRosa. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, everyone.
I guess that's it for us. So Chuck, yeah, look into that for us. There was something else I wanted to mention. Are we off? We're still recording, so,
Yep.
okay. I think that's it then. So who wants to move to adjourn?
move to adjourn.
Did we discuss Atlantic Road?
We have not heard anything from them, so I
Okay.
will follow up, figure out what we need to do on that.
Excellent. All right.
And I
I'll move-
second the motion to adjourn.
Anyway,
Roll call, Member Charpentier,
Yes,
Member Cook,
Yes.
Member Sergeant,
Yes.
Member Viteri,
Yes.
Member Gullo.
yes. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, thank you. Good night, everyone.
good night.